How's it going, Bat family? I'm back again today with another The Batman update, and I did a quick one yesterday with my reaction to the Empire magazine covers for The Batman, which gave us a look at Zoe Kravitz's Selina and The Batman. Awesome quality covers from the Empire magazine. Now, I do still recommend checking that out. We got a little bit of a preview for what's coming in the issue of December 23rd, but this video is even more exciting. We've got more of a preview from that issue, but we've got some words from Pattinson talking about the movie, Reeves talking about the movie with a very Kurt Cobain grunge-styled, influence on the movie. It's just, honestly, music to my ears, and the images we get arguably as good, if not cooler, than yesterday's. But I think I didn't really expect to get some tidbits from Reeves in this article. We get some information on Lucius Fox, or maybe a lack thereof, not to say that he won't maybe come later in the trilogy, and other details like that. As I said, I'm kind of surprised that they even included extra previews, but it just makes you think of what they're actually going to include in that magazine issue, of which I will be breaking down, don't worry about that, but they've already previewed how Paul Dano is going to talk about the Riddler, not just Reeves and Pattinson, so we've got a lot coming out in this Empire coverage for the Batman. So as always, guys, if you go on to like this video, I'd really appreciate a like. Make sure you share this with your friends to get this Batman hype out there. The marketing is truly starting to be fully in swing, and do consider subscribing to this channel because this is the place to be for the Batman. So the article from Empire, as I said, check it out. Get your own copy of the magazine that is coming, I believe December 23rd with this issue, but an extra preview on top of yesterday's is titled as follows: Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is inspired by Kurt Cobain, says Matt Reeves, exclusive images. And we're about to get into that, and I am a huge Nirvana fan, like huge, like really, 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 really big. And I knew that the grunge, we've heard about Reeves talk about the grunge kind of influences on this movie, obviously something in the way being used in the trailers and echoed on every trailer as well, with a little bit of a mix into the Batman theme. And it's just, there's even more emphasis. I was wondering if it was going to kind of end there with kind of Kurt's, or should I say Nirvana's, touch on this movie, other than the grunge influence and vibes and aesthetic, if you will. But no, it's even harder, and this is what Reeves is about to get into. Ben Travis writes this, I believe he wrote the article yesterday as well, saying, when the very first trailer for The Batman arrived in August 2020, it came with a surprising bit of soundtracking, an orchestral, trailer musicified version of Something in the Way by Nirvana. Sometimes such song choices are a case of just finding the right mood, I agree, or a specific connection with the lyrics, but in the case of Matt Reeves' new take on DC's Caped Crusader, there was a much more specific reason behind it. It's a tune that got right to the heart of the filmmaker's vision for the character, one that proved pivotal in shaping Robert Pattinson's take on Bruce Wayne, the rich orphan who dons the cowl and shakes down Gotham's criminal underworld. Now, this is where we get into those details from Reeves on Nirvana. So, honestly, if you were a fan of Nirvana just being kind of imprinted on this movie as it is, there is even more connections than that. So Reeves says, when I write, I listen to music, and as I was writing the first act, I put on Nirvana's Something in the Way. Reeves tells Empire in the upcoming The Batman issue. It's a song that promises a very different take to the recent big screen Bats, from Christian Bale to Ben Affleck, one inspired by 90s grunge icon. That's when it came to me that rather than make Bruce Wayne the playboy version we've seen him before, there's another version who had gone through a great tragedy and become a recluse. So I started making this connection to Gus Van Sant's Last Days, and this is what I love. The idea of this fictionalized version of Kurt Cobain being in this kind of decaying manner. Now, I love that. I really do. It kind of, emo jokes aside, because lots of people have been saying that since the first moment we saw the first DC fandom trailer with his haircut, this, that, and the other, but I think people have come to, if you didn't already, love the emo Bruce Wayne look, but really it's a grunge look. And by the way, don't take this out of context. Reeves isn't saying, literally this Batman is a literal Kurt Cobain if he went through the same tragedy and then became Batman. No, I see people going with that already, but no, what he means by and the idea of this fictionalized version of Kurt Cobain being in this kind of decaying manner, it's more or less in like, not to be taken literally, but in essence and vibe, you know? Like, Pattinson's Bruce is kind of looking like a rock star, Kurt Cobain, 90s grunge type, you know, kind of exterior, if you will. And they kind of, and it's not only that, it's probably more than just presentation. It's, as I said, the grunge kind of aesthetic and more things like that. And that's why he kind of visualized this fictionalized version of Kurt Cobain being kind of, or should I say Bruce heavily being kind of that version of a fictionalized Kurt, if you know what I mean. I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but we get into more details here, guys. I'm sorry if I'm not containing myself. I usually blabber when I'm very excited, but here we go. So the ideal actor for the job, the journalist says, Pattinson, whose astonishing performance in the Safdie brothers' Good Time, which you should check out if you haven't already, had caught Reeves' attention. So here's another quote. In that movie, you could really feel his vulnerability and desperation. But you could also feel his power, the director explains. I thought that was a great mix. He's also got that Kurt Cobain thing where he looks like a rock star, but you also feel like he could be a recluse. I 100% agree. And honestly, like, if you haven't already, but who hasn't already with Nirvana, but just take a deep dive into their discography rather than just Nevermind. There's a lot of great music out there. One of my favorite things, I play the acoustic guitar, don't get me wrong, I love electric as well, but check out the MTV Unplugged album. Listen to that version of Something in the Way. Oh, do it. Go on Spotify, YouTube, watch the video on YouTube. Something in the Way, MTV Unplugged acoustic. There's two versions, like a rehearsal, but watch the, you know. Anyway, moving on. So I'm now fanboying out about Nirvana. The article continues saying, it's not just a different vision of Bruce Wayne, that means a different Batman too. One with fewer of the flashy gadgets afforded by Lucius Fox, and he puts here in brackets, who doesn't appear here in the Nolan trilogy, and a more homespun, self-constructed edge. Now this is where Pattinson says, Bruce has been hiding away. He's not really a socialite at all. He's building all these little contraptions and things, just with Alfred. And even Alfred thinks he's gone insane. And if you watched my update video yesterday on the Empire magazines, one of the covers for the Empire magazine was, even Alfred thinks he's gone crazy. We went into that, long story short. Alfred does support him, as he says here, there is no Lucius Fox. As of right now, doesn't mean he won't come in like the second or third movie, but for now, this is very early days Bruce, so Alfred is, of course, helping Bruce tinker with his own Batmobile, tinker with his own Batarangs, helping facilitate it, but obviously at the same time is like, my god, like, should I really be helping out this man? Should I not be trying to, like, maybe he's already done the thing where he, like, says, Bruce, you shouldn't be doing this, but it didn't work, so he did reluctantly agree to help him, because maybe, as I just said, he at first was just trying to stray away from that, didn't support it, but then at some point, you know, Alfred being Alfred would want to help Bruce if he's that persistent. Continuing along, and we will get into these gorgeous images, it's a difference you'll see in the Batsuit, which looks like it's been through the ringer. He's been out every single night for 2 years, getting beaten up and shot and stabbed and burnt, and it shows, the actor explains. There's a bullet graze on the cowl right at the beginning. I don't think that's been done before, and I don't think it has necessarily unless you count that moment in BVS. The first thing that comes to mind is when Batfleck gets shot point blank, but I think what Pattinson means there before, like, the fandom of the Snyder people just go, what do you want about, no, Batfleck had a gun to the head? No, it just means, like, the fact that on a fresh new movie, there's already, like, a bullet mark on the cowl. And by the way, that's good news for me, because it shows that the cowl does have an aspect of bulletproof, which is what I have been hoping for this entire time. It's just the exterior throws people off. So the suit is very bulletproof, as we know from the trailers, but the cowl has a leather exterior to it, but that doesn't mean underneath it. And I pointed this out in so many breakdowns. In certain side shots of the cowl, you can actually see in the eyes how thick at the right angle it is. It's like that thick, meaning that it has an undershell of armor probably, but with a leather exterior. And that's probably what they're going for, because how else would it have a bullet mark on it if it wasn't somewhat bulletproof? But obviously, in a realistic sense, that would mean Pattinson's Batman, or Bruce, after that bullet hit that cowl, he would have been concussed to hell. But yeah, I'm loving all of these details. It says, to read more on Robert Pattinson's all-new Batman, pick up Empire's world-exclusive The Batman issue, talking to director Matt Reeves, stars Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, and Paul Dano, and producer Dylan Clark about their radical reinvention of the Caped Crusader. Find it on shelves from Thursday, 23rd of December. Long story short, what I said in my previous video, I'll try and get that out before Christmas, but if not, get it as a Christmas present on this channel, maybe Boxing Day, maybe the 27th. You know, trust me, I'm going to get into the details we get out of this magazine, but life and all that, I might be busy around the Christmas period. I know you guys understand, but these images! I think the first one we see here, obviously, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. This could be from any part in the movie when we see Pattinson look fierce in this batsuit in this moment. He looks incredible. It could be the scene in where he fights with the train gang. It looks like a similar background, possibly, but, you know, I'm sure people are like, but how do you know that, Boba? I don't for a fact, but I'm willing to bet this is at that part in the trailer where he comes out of, like, the somewhat shadows, and the train gang are there, and he's about to engage in hand-to-hand combat, you know, shock that guy, almost taser him up against the wall, if you remember. I'm sure this is that moment, or maybe even after he stands up from beating the guy senseless several times. But again, on top of the magazine covers we went over yesterday that I'm sure you're seeing on screen, and just seeing an actual shot from the movie here, this is my favorite Batsuit. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, you can like what you like, but I don't really want anything to change. The cowl is perfect. Like, I was a bit hesitant on the cowl at first, only from the logistical side of, is it bulletproof? But now I know that it does have like a shell under it, which does reflect bullets as much as any kind of cowl could, unless obviously you're going with BVS type Superman armor, if you know what I mean. This is, like, I don't know what else to say. It's good, it's great, it's absolutely great. There's little revisions I would make for this in the future movies. Sure, there can be improvements, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if I was alright with this staying, but he's obviously going to get improvements for the next couple of movies. Now, the next image is of Bruce Wayne. This is the Kurt Cobain vibe that you've all been hearing about in this article. Even with the lighting having this very yellowy hue, this is, I think, a big part of the lighting in the movie. Some of the first images that you're seeing on screen now, released by Reeves, have this same filter on it, and that is when he's outside standing by the Batmobile. But the reason why I say this is because I still believe this is in the Batcave, because you can see the kind of background kind of structures there, mirroring some of the aesthetics of the Batcave's structuring and foundations of, like, the subway. I could be wrong. That doesn't look like a decaying Wayne Manor. It looks like more of an industrial space. So I think this is maybe where Bruce is, yeah, just in a part of the Wayne Terminus or whatever, part of the Batcave. He just has that look that Reeves was describing with his heavy Kurt Cobain influence, grunge vision for this movie, and grunge really does fit Batman. And I do find it interesting, again, to kind of revisit my comments from yesterday in how, you know, the article leads, and a big part of this marketing from some of these magazines or outlets are saying it never been, you know, a very different Batman. But I suppose they're right in that. It's just, I still maintain it's different from what's been shown on screen, but what is ironic about that is that it's the most accurate. Like, this is the most accurate, not necessarily origin, as Matt Reeves says, it refers to his origins, but he's not different from, like, if you read Batman Year One or Batman Ego. Like, this is the Batman from the comics, just we're getting the most accurate blend of this iteration in live action than what Nolan did. Not knocking those films at all, like, they had comic accuracies to it through and through. But this, if you want to kind of, like, scrunch it up into, like, an overall product, this is the most accurate product to make it somewhat definitive Batman. And yes, I can say that. Some people comment, but Bob, you haven't seen the movie. Like, I know enough of what Reeves has spat out through the imagery, through so much interviews going on for... We know enough about this movie to know it is tackling the most detective, point-of-view driven aspects of this character, which reflect the most accurate Batman we'll see yet. Will the movie be good? That is another thing, but I can decree, if you will, that it is the most accurate Batman. It's just funny, again, that, you know, it's such a different Batman, such a, you know, this has never been done before kind of thing. And it's true, but, like, don't get mistaken in how he's different. That doesn't mean different from the comics. Also, just addressing other things, like with what Reeves said, don't worry about when he says things like... That's when it came to me that rather than make Bruce Wayne the Playboy version we've seen before, there's another version who've gone through a great tragedy and became a recluse. So it's interesting because that is still accurate. Like, the way I see this is that Bruce, he's in year 2 right now. He became a recluse after the Waynes died, and that's still accurate to the character, right? At this point, he's still not got the duality of Bruce Wayne and Batman fully solidified. As Pattinson says, he is literally, ever since actually donning and becoming Batman for the first time in the first day and the first night, been out every single night for 2 years. He's a workaholic Batman. There is little to no Bruce Wayne that ever gets seen in the public up until the events of this movie, where he tends to make his funeral, etc., etc. I'm sure you know what I'm on about if you've seen my prior videos, blending all those theories and pieces of evidence from various trailers together. So, but what I'm trying to get to the point of here is that that doesn't mean that as the years go on, that he doesn't go out and be the more playboy persona. I'm sure that will come with development. Whether we see that in the trilogy or not, by the way, because the trilogy could span, yeah, certain time jumps, but like, even if the third film is on year 6 or 7, let's just say that for example's sake, the 4th movie, the 5th movie, the 6th movie, we never get to see, but in our headcanon, that's where Bruce probably will go out a bit more in public and see that it's more of a good idea to present himself in a bit of a fake way, because obviously after these 3 movies end, unless he dies, which I doubt's gonna happen, he's gonna continue on being Batman, but in our headcanon we'll know that, especially after this first movie, a big lesson will be him differentiating how full of rage he is and how, yes, he will continue the mission, but he kind of needs to kind of think about everything, and then as he grows, temper himself a little bit. So you get what I mean. Through the development of him being a little less quick to rage after these movies, that will still come. It's just we're at an early point in where, as Reeves said, like, we're not going to do the Playboy version we've seen before. It's just, I feel like he could have added in at the beginning. Like, we're not going to do the Playboy version at the beginning, as kind of, for example, Christian Bale's one was swimming in the hotel lobby fairly early on, if you know what I mean. Whereas this Pattinson won't be doing that, but that can come at some point. I have no doubt about that. It's just this Bruce is at the beginning of this journey, this Batman career, and it's the only driving fuel and force he has in life. Like, but with wisdom, with experience, with tempering his own actions through what we've seen in this movie. It's already been discussed before, where he's smacking the crap out of someone, realizing and learning lessons from how far he goes to crack this Riddler case. Like, as Alfred says, if you continue like this, you know, you have nothing left. Like, he's losing himself, and he will, after conquering the Riddler in this movie and like fixing all of this, or like figuring it out, he'll know what adjustments to make in the future, thus improving him as a character, thus opening the doors to the duality of Bruce Wayne further down the line. I know I've been going on about that for a while, but I just think it's important to stress that all that is happening here is that we're tackling the early Batman in the most accurate way, and everything else is still on the table for this Robert Pattinson Bruce. It's just not in year 2. Simple as that. The other things we hear from Pattinson as well is just stuff we already know, but it's nice to hear kind of regurgitated, and just with how Bruce has been hiding away. We know that he's workaholic, and he's just not a socialite at all, doesn't go out at all. He's just building all these little contraptions and things just with Alfred, because Lucius Fox isn't in the picture. Same thing, by the way, same philosophy as well as going on with like Bruce pretending to be a socialite as he goes on in this like canons, like years, even if we don't see it in the movies. Same with Lucius Fox. I'm sure even if we don't see it in the trilogy, you can expect that he'll meet a guy who can help him out even more and relieve some of the pressure of him having to make everything himself with Alfred. It's that kind of idea. And I just love how he is always, if he's not out there at night, he's in the Batcave, and if he's not eating and sleeping, he's always working on something, because his whole drive is just to do what he set out to do. And that is also just very accurate with the man who starts this crusade in the first place. But again, with experience, he will learn the best ways to tackle it. It's just at the moment, at the beginning, it's all he can see. Anyway though, everyone, I think that's everything I've got to say. I felt compelled to make this video because it was more interesting than yesterday's reaction to the Empire magazine covers, so I had to give my thoughts on literal new teasers from Pattinson and Matt Reeves. That's just something that goes without saying. I would love to know what you thought of my perspectives on the quotes from Reeves and Pattinson, and the images, and just everything like that. The Kurt Cobain fictionalized kind of vibe that they're putting on Pattinson. It's just, all of it is just, it really is just like marinating in the background to be this great outcome of a recipe for success. And I know that comes across like really hyper, like focused on this movie's success, and I can't guarantee that it will be a great movie, but like I'm saying that everything points towards it being a recipe for success, like and very in line with what I want as a vision for the Batman, and it just feels like Matt Reeves and Pattinson and anyone in the cast are the people to fulfill that. Like, tell me I'm wrong, change my mind. So guys, like this video if you did enjoy it, do subscribe for future updates like this. As you know, got you covered. If you do want to follow me a little bit more, you can do so in the links in the top pinned comment. I do not post links in the description. It's always in the top pinned comment to my Discord server. Join that, talk with me about the Batman there. My Twitter, I do recommend following me on Twitter. It's actually my most active social media. I do have Instagram and stuff, but you know, not as active on there. And hey, if you want a Boba beanie, I do have a store as well. That could always help support the channel. I do have a join button, and thanks to all the people who are members appearing on the screen. They are my Patreon members and channel members. They help fuel the kind of videos that are created on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Bat family in that next update video. Goodbye.